And now it is time to welcome our first guest today in a segment that we call Dog Mom Biz. Joan Ranquet is an animal communicator, TEDx speaker, Hay House and Sounds True author, educator, and a dog mom blessed with a healing touch. In 2009, Joan founded the CWALU. That stands for Communication with All Life University. This is a certification program for animal communication, energy healing, and nature and wildlife. It's taught online and in person. And Joan joins us now from Santa Clarita, California. Joan, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Thanks so much for being with us, for making the time. Joan, we always like to start in the beginning, and we're curious, where did your love for dogs come from?
Well, if you were to go through a box of photos or a photo album of me as a child, I always say that I was raised as a small lap dog because I'm sitting on my dad's lap with the dog, or I'm in the crib with the dog. I was a small lap dog, so that's how it all began.
So sweet. Always with the dog. That's great. And I can relate to you, except when I was little, I always had a pet hen. But nonetheless, when you have a love for dogs, you can't help but just your heart gets so filled up. So tell me though, it's my understanding that you actually have a degree in theater. So how did you make this transition from the theater world to working with dogs?
Well, I was in the theater and film business, and I had lived in New York, and then I lived in Los Angeles, and I ended up with actually, what's funny is my first job in Los Angeles was I became a dog walker to the stars. And it was before dog walking was a business. So awesome. I was out there walking dogs and then dropping them off at the Cheers set or at the Taxi set. And so this is a million years ago. But no. I would go from 0 to 60 dogs in about 4 minutes every morning. And then I'd drop them off at the set every afternoon.
Wow. So I mean, I imagine you made some incredible connections doing that.
I did. And later, a lot of those people became clients when I made the switch over to animal communication. So it was I was very lucky that I ended up with some great clients.
That's awesome. And now you've been dubbed a celebrity animal communicator yourself. So you're a celebrity too. And that actually was in an AMC documentary. And then you've been featured in dozens of media, including The Hollywood Reporter, Pet Nation and Dateline NBC, The Today Show on NBC, Good Morning America on ABC, Animal Planet, The National Enquirer, and the Los Angeles Times, just to name a few. This is a really big deal, Joan. So I want to know, how did you build your reputation as an animal communicator to the stars? I mean, obviously you would rub elbows with stars, but you have quite the reputation for yourself.
Well, I think, one of the first things is I'm very private. I don't tell people, what was said. Secondly, I just love what I do. So now I'm more of a teacher and a school. But in the beginning, I was so excited to do this, and I was so excited that anybody that believed in it or had a problem that needed to be solved, I was just happy to help them. And so that, no matter how many bits of press I've gotten in the past, the truth is it's a real word of mouth business.
Sure. Is there a moment that you would say was kind of your breakout moment or your big break?
There was one moment, yeah, actually, and it did involve the press. So I had been doing both. I was managing, being an animal communicator and still screenwriting. I had stopped auditioning, but I was still writing screenplays, and I was completely invested emotionally, physically, mentally, even spiritually in this project I was about to do. And I had actors, I had funding, I had everything for this film. And I got a call that the film project fell apart. And I thought, my life is over. My life as I know it is over. I mean, I wasn't even thinking about this other business I was building. And literally the next morning, I get up early and I meditate and work out. So I got up and when I got finished, it was about 7 in the morning, and I happened to look in the LA Times, and there was this article, an interview I had done like a month before, came out that day, and I didn't know it. So I ran down to the corner, picked up a bunch of newspapers. I thought, all right, I'll send this to my mom. That sort of thing.
Right.
And then I didn't realize that for some reason the ringer on my telephone was off. So now it's 7:30 in the morning, and I hit the, this is back when we had phone machines, and I hit the
Yes.
thing, and it
I
said,
remember those days. Yes.
yeah, it was a 1,000 years, the dark ages. Anyway, I hit the, replay, and it said, you have 32 messages. And it's been like that since. I mean, I always say that really is how it's been.
That must have felt like such an encouragement to you, to on one hand feel like everything's falling apart, but then it almost feels like divine timing, that affirming article came through just in time. That must have been an incredible feeling. Was it enough to propel you forward, to keep you going in it?
Oh yeah. I mean, I was already, in the film business, you kind of get paid for optioning at first, and then you get paid, you get paid for when a film is going to go. So I was actually sustaining myself on animal communication and the odd rewrite here and there for other people, but it was sustaining me already. But that, took me to the next level.
That's so awesome. I find this so fascinating. How would you describe what you do as an animal communicator?
Well, what I do is if someone, let's say that you wanted to have a session, you would send me a picture, we would set up an appointment, and then when we got on the phone, you would tell me the name of your dog, how old they are, who you live with, you and your dog, or dogs, and then I would look at the picture and I would do telepathic communication, which is the transference of pictures, words, and feelings. So it's getting a sense, right? A sense of who your animal is and what might be going on with them. And then from there, I would do a little medical intuition scan and make sure that if any behavioral issues or relationships weren't, are simply because of something else going on as opposed to something physical, like a head injury could make somebody cranky.
Sure.
So I would scan the body, and then I would tell you everything I got. And then if you had questions, we would, kind of stay in a 3-way, or if you had a bunch of dogs like I do, it might be a 5-way conversation.
There you go. When did you discover that you had this talent and ability? Because obviously this is a unique gift.
So I discovered it in the 80s, when I used an animal communicator to help me with my own horses at the time. And I didn't think, I could do it. And the animal communicator said then that anybody could do it and that I was already doing it. And she gave me some tips. And so I was constantly trying it. And so it wasn't until a few years later that I really ended up, I had a problem with a horse, and I couldn't find the animal communicator's phone number that I'd used for years. And the next day I found that there was a class. And so I signed up for the class, and I was pretty good at it. I thought it was really fun. And then it literally was one of those things where I thought, I'll just see if I could practice. So I practiced with friends' dogs, with friends' horses, with friends' cats. And then I ended up taking a class for a year. So I tell people the gift is that I said yes to it. The gift is that I get to do this every day of my life. But it's really
That's a great way to look at it. And it's interesting, though, that you said that just about anyone can learn to do it. But I imagine that you just have to have an openness and believe that it's possible, too.
You have to have an openness and believe that it's possible. And then also it's like remembering the fact that this is how we communicated as babies, right? We learned eventually to cry, and we learned words, and once we learned language and kind of how to manipulate through emotion, we let go of telepathy.
You touched on emotion. And I want to ask you about EFT. And for dog moms who are watching and they don't know what that stands for, that's actually the emotional freedom techniques. How do you tap in with that technique? How does it work?
So, emotional freedom technique, tapping, is a technique that is usually known as a human technique that I started using on animals back in 2004. But it's emotional freedom technique is tapping on acupressure points that are feel-good acupressure points while telling a challenging story. So it's sort of like letting go of this, unfavorable thing while tapping on points that are specifically chosen in a sequence that starts to calm the nervous system. So if you imagine, and if you think about acupressure, it's been around for 6,000 years, and acupressure points are connected to meridians, and those meridians are each connected to organs, and each of those organs are connected to an emotion in traditional Chinese medicine. So in traditional Chinese medicine, there's always an underlying emotion to every illness or health challenge or breakdown, even with arthritis. So they really look at it as a holistic thing. Yeah, very interesting.
Yes, that we can let go of those suppressed feelings, or that through tapping, literally, those feel-good points, you start letting go and releasing what we need to let go of. And it's interesting that us humans, we can benefit too. Wow. I mean, that it must be really rewarding for you to actually see an animal make a breakthrough in a sense.
There's nothing I love more. And I also love seeing the light bulb for the person when we're just focusing on what the animal is going through. The person usually has a moment of, oh, I haven't seen this behavior that I've wanted in a long time, or, oh, I didn't realize, oops, we just got a drive-by, a little puppet.
Hello. That's so sweet. Drive-bys are definitely allowed. We like cats here too. We're dog moms, but we're open to cats as well. That's so sweet. Oh my. And you've been using this technique too to help others. And are you teaching this to shelter workers? That's my understanding. So really, I mean, this is so beneficial in so many ways.
Yeah, so my little trajectory, if you will, with EFT was, first I learned it on myself because I couldn't sleep. And then I was able to sleep, and I thought, this is amazing. So then I started working with people, just the humans, because I got certified, and there was nobody teaching it for animals back then. So I got certified and started helping people who had dogs with leash aggression, because the person also gets tense, right? And can compound the situation. And then I worked with people who had been bucked off their horse. And so, they were afraid to get back on. So all the things where the person was impacted and could compound any fear or anything else going on with the animal. So in about 2004, I tapped on a horse and there was no turning back. And so then I started tapping on all animals.
All animals, that's great. And all too often with shelter animals, I mean, say for example, someone adopts a pet. We want everyone to be committed for the long haul, but unfortunately, some people just give up too soon. So if they know that something like this technique could help them tremendously, think of the relationships that could stay intact and how many dogs could even stay from the shelters and with their original families. I mean, that's amazing. Joan, it really is. I wanted to talk to you too about communication with All Life University. I know it started in 2009 and it's a certification program for animal communication, but I'm going to let you tell us all about it.
So, Communication with All Life University started, as you said, in 2009. And I started out just with animal communication. And then I got my second book deal and I added in the energy healing for animals. And so we've been, I guess it's been since 2014 that I added the energy healing for animals. So with the school, we have, people can come and just take a class and learn animal communication or energy healing, or they can kind of combine it both. And we have a big degree, if you will, called Animal Mastery program, Animal Mastery. And then we have little offshoots from that. Once people have graduated from that, they can go into teaching, they can go into animals in transition, so helping people when their animals are crossing over or have crossed over. We have something called the Animal Ambassador Program, and that is where we're learning to help animals in shelters and wildlife centers and therapeutic riding centers, guide dogs, all those things. But getting back to what you said a moment ago, we now have a shelter initiative. And so we're doing tapping in the shelters, training the staff and volunteers, and helping them to help these animals get adopted. But like you said, make it sustainable so that the animal doesn't get returned.
That's wonderful. That is so incredible. And I just love the depth and the richness of the education, how many different areas, that folks with this interest can go and learn and grow and just take their knowledge deeper. So it's a great program. Tell us about your global adventures. You've been able to travel to so many incredible places. Is there an experience that stands out in your mind, or any one place that you really loved visiting, and or an animal in that very one place that was amazing that you want to tell us about?
Well, I love all of it. I've gotten to go all through Africa, different countries in Africa, and I've done a few in Asia. I've done a lot of swimming with dolphins. But this last year, I took people in May to India, and it was primarily a tiger trip. But they have, so tigers are, the theme of all my trips are, species that could potentially go extinct very quickly. So tiger was the main reason we were in India, and we went to 3 different amazing national parks. But also, one of the things I got to see there that I've never seen in all my years of going to Africa, I saw the Indian wild dog. And we spent an hour just with this one dog. And it was like sitting with, of course, it's a killing machine, but it was like sitting with your own dog, but just in the distance. And it was a very amazing experience just to see him look around, check out everything going on. It was incredible.
Describe that emotional experience for you when you in a sense make this connection with an animal. Do you feel it in your body? Describe that feeling for us.
What I feel when I'm in that setting is I guess on the one hand, you feel super exhilarated because who gets to do this, right? So it could be very exciting, but I've learned to bring that in so that I'm not a threat in any way to the animal, right? So I learn to make myself I've taught myself to make myself a safe space. It's what I teach everybody in the Jeep or on the trip with me. And in that remarkable setting, it's so connected, and it's very loving, even though those animals could not be loving in a minute, but it has this incredible sense of love and connectedness, and I just feel beyond gratitude, I feel such appreciation for them and their world. And as a result of getting everybody else into that state, we have some of the most amazing encounters. Every guide or tracker says to me, I've never seen this, or I've never had that experience. Like a tiger just walking right by the Jeep. And so it's pretty amazing to be able to be in that state of appreciation.
Oh, absolutely. And to get a front row seat to incredible experiences and milestones in your life and apparently in the lives of others and a lot of people. I know that you're obviously living out of your gifts. You're doing what you're supposed to do. And I know you have such a heart for animals and people. And you've had experiences where you've really been able to help bring pets and their owners closer together. Are there any stories that stand out in your mind when it comes to really just strengthening relationships and bonds?
Yeah, I've got many, many, many. One of my favorites is a story. It's in my first book. A friend of mine named Frank had called me and said that his dog he said, Joan, I think this is the end. Can you tell me if my dog is ready to go? And I connected with Christian, and Christian he was an older, I mean, he wasn't young, golden retriever. And he was, a little chunky, a little slow moving, pretty arthritic. But I just said, you know what, Frank, I feel like there's something going on in his lungs. And yeah, he slowed down, but he's not ready to go. In fact, he wants a party. And
a party.
So
Great.
Yeah, Frank took the dog to the doctor, or to the vet, and found out that the dog had bronchitis. He got that treated, and then he and his friend created the biggest birthday party you've ever seen. And this was back in the 90s too, so it was like people were doing birthday parties for dogs back then.
Right.
And so
that is incredible.
Yeah, and Christian was way in the distance, and there's a video where Frank comes out with a cake. Everyone's singing happy birthday. You can hear some people in the background saying, why are we singing to a dog? And the next thing you know,
because Joan told me to, and she knows.
Exactly. So
Joan knows.
That's right. So Christian got out, shot over to the cake, and howled. They hadn't seen him run in like a year. Ran over, howled to the cake.
Oh, that is so beautiful. Literally, it's a situation where this gentleman thinks like, okay, I'm going to have to prepare myself to say bye now. And you're saying, no, don't get the wrong impression here. Go from sadness to complete and utter joy with a celebration of that sort. How long did Christian, I don't know, make it after that? Did he make a total recovery?
No, he lived a couple months, but they have never forgotten that, and they've, I mean, and this is many, many years later, and they've had a few dogs since, and I've known all of them, and they're very aware now of how to celebrate a dog.
Yes, that is so great. And talk about, I don't know, finishing well, right? They got to love him well towards the end, and it was a big celebration. And you're right, those memories that we just cling to that are so remarkable. I'm going to pivot a little, Joan. I know that you host a lot of events and workshops for pet owners. Tell us about those events, and what are some of the main insights that you want people to get from your workshops when they attend?
Well, I have twice a year I do something called the intensive. And it's like a retreat where you come here to my little ranchette. And in the fall, we do animal communication, death, dying, and beyond, and energy healing for animals. And in the spring, we do animal communication, EFT, emotional freedom technique, and animal communication in sanctuaries and shelters. And each of those things is online also as a weekend virtual retreat. And then we also have just online class, 12-week, once a week classes. So, and what I hope for people is that, I mean, especially if they really invest in themselves in a bigger context, like in the bigger programs, I always say that you're going to have a soul's journey. You're going to end up with a great skill, and the harmony in your home is going to increase. And that could include the people, not just the animal.
Sure. So it's a win-win for you and your animal, of course. We mentioned, Joan, kind of near the top when I was introducing you, that you had a TEDx talk. That's a huge, huge opportunity, and I know that it was really successful. You got a lot of clicks online with it. If you dog moms want to look it up, it's called The Rainbow Bridge: Animals in Transition. What was that experience like for you, Joan?
It was, well, I had this whole other talk planned, and then I got accepted, and I was going to talk about the journey as a soulmate. And then they told us what the theme, I guess I didn't know this, every TED or TEDx talk has a theme. And they said the theme is bridges, building bridges, breaking down bridges. And I went, oh my God, the Rainbow Bridge. And so I just thought about what is going to help people know that there's so many other people experiencing that loss like they are, and how could I put this into a talk where we all feel seen and heard because we're having the same experience. And so I share the story of letting go of one of my horses, and it's gotten a few views.
Oh, I'm sure. I mean, it's such an emotional thing to say goodbye to a pet that you love. But there is a point where it's time where we have to let them go. And that can be a really tough call to make.
Very, very, very tough.
So I'm sitting here and I just find it so interesting. I could talk to you all night, Joan. Some people who are watching might be a little skeptical. I mean, I'm sure you hear that sometimes, skeptical about animal communication and what this is like, but this is a real thing for you. So what do you say to people who are skeptics?
Well, I haven't been around many people because I think people would be afraid to admit if they were skeptical.
Yes, sure.
So there's people that tell me after the session, they'll say, oh my God, that blows me away. I really came in here skeptical. But thankfully they put that aside at the door. And I've just been really lucky because I've had so much work that I've kind of done a combination of hyper-focused and turned into Pollyanna, like everything's fine. And I've stayed busy.
Right. There you go. And at some point you just have to say, let the haters hate, people who are skeptical. Exactly. And you're doing this to help people and help animals. So at the end of the day, you've had a lot of really incredible experiences and you're helping a lot of animals to live better lives. So I've just so enjoyed talking with you, Joan. For our dog moms who want to stay on top of what you have going on, what is the best way for them to do that?
They can go to my website, joanranquet.com, JoanRanquet.com. And I also have a really fun interactive Facebook group called Learn to Communicate with Animals with Joan. And I do a weekly thing in there. And so it's a great way to start to learn if you're curious.
Okay, Joan, you're the founder of the CWALU, you're an author, and you're just awesome. So thank you so much for your time.
Thank you so much, and you're awesome also. I love what you're doing.
Thanks so much for watching this Dog Mom News clip. Be sure to like, comment, and subscribe to our YouTube channel for more awesome and informative Dog Mom News content. And while you're at it, ring the bell so that you can find out about more content in real time. And be sure to join us Thursdays at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time for our live show. You don't want to miss it. Thanks for watching, everyone.